Today on CTV News at 5, incredible! An elderly woman is run over by a semi while riding her scooter. Despite the accident, she's in remarkable shape. Under construction, after turning sod a few weeks back, City Council announces who will build the Crossings Ice Complex. Plus, there is a move afoot to amend a line in the national anthem. We'll tell you who's behind the movement.
CTV News with Elissa Carpenter.
Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. When you see the pictures, you won't believe she's alive. An 85-year-old woman was run over by a semi this morning. Lethbridge Regional Police Service says the woman was traveling on the sidewalk at 13th Street and 5th Avenue North when she turned into the path of a semi. She was pinned underneath the big rig. Emergency personnel worked to free the woman quickly, expecting the worst. But she was rushed to hospital and remarkably treated for just cuts and bruises. None of her injuries are considered life-threatening. Police are still investigating. So far, no charges have been laid. Well, Dory, if the leaves changing color weren't enough of an indication, the temperatures are all over the map this week, so it must be fall.
Yeah, it must be. Mother Nature just can't decide what she wants, summer temperatures or fall temperatures, and we're going to have a bit of both this week. As we head in towards the weekend, temperatures go up the scale, but before that, a little bit more downward, and I'll tell you all about it in a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Dory. For the first time in 17 years, the U.S. government has shut down. A funding standoff means hundreds of thousands of federal workers are off the job without pay. It's because the country's fiscal year ended at midnight, but the budget for the 2013-2014 year has yet to be finalized. Everything but essential services has been suspended. We contacted Canada Border Services, who says there have been no noticeable change or delay on the Canadian side of the border. And we tried to contact officials on the U.S. side, but as they are not considered essential services, no one answered our calls. And so far, there is no word on how long the shutdown may continue for. And a reminder, if you were planning to travel south, the Chief Mountain Crossing has closed for the year. The closure took place over the weekend. This is not part of the government shutdown. It's an annual closure. There is no travel to the U.S. via that crossing until late spring. A local builder will begin construction of the Crossings Ice Complex this fall. The sod was turned a few weeks ago, and today City Council announced its unanimous decision to award the contract to Ward Brothers Construction. 7 companies bid for the project, which includes twin arenas, an adjoining 10-sheet curling facility, and seating for about 900 spectators. Construction will take about 2 years. Meantime, plans have stalled on a new Riverstone development that would have seen a number of multifamily homes built into the subdivision. A recommendation to amend the land use bylaw to include 38 multifamily units at the south end of Riverstone was defeated in a tie vote. During an earlier council meeting, many area residents spoke against the project, saying it would hurt their property values. University of Lethbridge Associate Professor Yael Belanger is concerned about the message that sends to the community. Belanger, who lives near the proposed development, says on one hand the city preaches inclusiveness but doesn't follow through in the practice.
City Council, we elect them in to make the tough decisions. A tough decision had to be made, so what do? They go back to the community. They ask for a democratic forum where there's basically no opposition. And I think that our community leaders are elected into that position for the purposes of making the tough decisions at this point. They're the ones who have to ensure that everybody in this community is represented.
Now, city planners will work on a new presentation for that area, but that won't happen until a new city council is in place. The trial is in its second day for a Lethbridge man facing a slew of child porn charges. Chase Alexander Tyke is representing himself at trial. The Crown says Tyke went to police back in 2011 and admitted to officers he had inappropriate internet relationships with teen girls. Police say Tyke admitted to interacting with more than a dozen girls over a 3-year period. The trial began Monday morning with a voir dire. That's a trial within a trial to determine if what Tyke told police during that 2011 interview can be used against him now. Charges include making, accessing, possessing, and distributing child porn, as well as 2 counts of luring a child. Tyke had a lawyer but fired his attorney months ago. He's been free on strict conditions since his arrest. The trial is expected to wrap up tomorrow. Now to a story out of Calgary, that strange story involving a renter who declared his home an embassy. The landlord has finally been inside her duplex, and we were there as she took a look. This is what Rebecca Caverhill's home looks like after she evicted Mario Antonacci and his entourage. He had declared it an embassy for his Freemen on the Land movement, a group who says the laws of Canada do not apply to them. The base was apparently a communication centre for the group. There are over 30 chairs, dozens of computers, and several printers and photocopiers.
It's a war room. It's making war on Canada. It's a terrorist room. It's domestic terrorism. That's what the FBI calls it.
Antonacci is now facing several charges for refusing to leave the home. And time now for our weekly look at the world of agriculture with Farm TV. This week we take a look at the research that goes on in the fields.
Farming Smarter is a Lethbridge-based agriculture research organization.
Well, Farming Smarter is a nonprofit organization that's producer-directed, and we're doing applied research and extension for Southern Alberta producers.
To aid them in their research, they just received a grant from the provincial government.
The instrument is called a Veris. It's an electroconductivity sensor, and it also has a pH and organic matter sensor. We'll also be purchasing an EM38, which is another brand of electroconductivity sensor. We're hoping to use these pieces of equipment to aid us in a variable rate research project that will ultimately help producers and agronomists in Southern Alberta. The opportunity to have these equipment our own allows us to schedule our work appropriately, to learn how to use and interpret the data appropriately, and in the end, just have better information to present to producers and agronomists.
Ms. Pester was given a demonstration of soil sampling and other aspects of the applied research conducted by Farming Smarter.
Farm TV is brought to you by DA Building Systems.
A new show at the Yates will bring you back to your teen years.
This is what happened. The bus pulled into this stop at Town Centre.
Roots follows a 15-year-old boy from the sometimes tough Mill Woods neighborhood in Edmonton. The play takes place on a city bus where the boy contemplates his problems at home and his constant bullying at school. The show highlights the stresses young Tom is facing and aims to prove that it only takes one person to stand up and make a difference. It's also a play specifically designed for what's often been a missed demographic in the theater world.
What's really exciting about this show is that it is a story about a teenage boy, and teenagers really ages 12 to 18 are largely ignored by theater. There's not a lot of theater created for them. There's not a lot of characters in that age in theater. So it's really wonderful to have a story that talks about what it's like to be 15 years old, how isolating it can be, how hilarious and awkward it can be.
This isn't the life.
And the play concludes with a question and answer session. Dory is up with the forecast next. First, here's a look at your Tuesday market numbers.